So there's more than one way to bake a cake. And we're going to apply that saying to residential real estate and making sure that you sell your house for the most money possible in the best possible time frame. But first, I wanted to just think on that statement for a minute. And I observed my wife recently. She's really into baking sourdough bread right now. And the process that she has in place for baking the sourdough bread is crazy to me. All of the measurements, the timing, the temperatures, it's this day-long process, and it's very specific. You know, you take the yeast, you put it in the flour and the water, you have to knead it for a certain amount of time, and you have to let it rest for a certain amount of time. It can't get above this temperature or below this temperature. So specific and so particular. And the reality is, if you don't do it the right way, you don't end up with sourdough bread. And that's the case in many categories of life. Let's say you have to get a surgery and your doctor is a millimeter or two off with the incision that they need to make. That creates a big problem. Residential real estate is the same way. While there are multiple ways of doing things, there is a recipe, there is a design to ensuring that you get the most amount of money in the best possible time frame with the fewest number of headaches. So, since I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, I wanted to share that with you today. And this will be relevant whether you're using my services in the Northeast Florida area or another real estate brokerage, or even if you have a home that's outside of our market, this will still be helpful. Okay, so let's get to the list. So there's going to be 10 things that we look at to make sure that your house sells. And while this list isn't completely exhaustive, it gets you most of the way there. So the first one, or bullet point number 1 that we're going to look at, is the geocoding on your address. And this may not make any sense at all, but if the listing is going in the MLS, or if you're putting it on any public website that's advertising it for sale, you want to make sure that the address registers, whether it's Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever the case may be, that the software and system is using to pin drop the address on a map. You want to make sure that that's catching and that it's registering correctly. I see often enough when I go into our MLS an address that doesn't map to where it physically is on a map, which means when buyers are online sort of looking around at homes to buy and they're looking from a map view, which is my favorite way of doing it, and you know, if you're looking around at homes online, you probably enjoy doing that too, just kind of seeing an area that you want to be in and you're clicking on the buttons or clicking on the pin drops to see the information on the houses that are for sale in that area. And if you don't have it geocoded correctly, it won't show up on that map. It would in a list, in other ways that people might search, but the map is the most important. So, item number 1, make sure that it geocodes correctly. Okay, item number 2, go through the description and with the items that people would search for. So bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, number of stories, number of garage spaces, the list goes on. Make sure that you have the information correct. I see it almost every day when looking through listings for potential customers, some listing that doesn't have bedrooms, like it has 0 for the number of bedrooms. So when you plug in a search that has minimum 3 bedrooms, minimum 2 bathrooms, minimum 1,800 square feet, that listing doesn't show up because it doesn't fit the criteria. So it still can be found, but you would be missing potential buyers by not having the correct information. And the other thing that this can do is sort of prevent you from future liability. So most of the legal situations as a real estate brokerage that we have found ourselves in over the years are on something where an item wasn't disclosed correctly or was overstated, maybe too much square footage compared to what actually was the case, or maybe it's got a septic tank where we disclosed it was on a city sewer system. So double checking that not only ensures you get the most number of eyeballs looking at the property online, but saves you from future liability as well. We're moving right along. Tip number 3. So when you're a buyer and you're looking for a home online and you're reading through descriptions, you get pretty accustomed to the generic sort of stale, information dump that is in the listing description. So as the owner or listing agent, it's always nice to spice it up just a little bit. You don't want to get too carried away with the number of adjectives and adverbs you're using to describe the home, but giving it some flavor is a good thing. And here's my tip for how to do it is go to ChatGPT and do your homework on the specifics of the property: beds, baths, square footage, proximity to restaurants, grocery stores, major highways, things to do, benefits and amenities of the neighborhood. You get all of that into just sort of a bullet point format. You go to ChatGPT and you say to ChatGPT, pretend as if you are an expert marketer and write a full description for this home using the information below. It's going to take your information, turn it into a nicely worded paragraph that you can then edit. So if you're not feeling particularly creative when you're writing the listing description, you just outsource that to artificial intelligence. It sends you something back and then you compare it down and go from there. And that's my tip for making a story out of your listing description. Okay. Item number 4, and this may seem like low-hanging fruit that all listings have professional photography done for them these days, but I still see listings in our MLS that looks like somebody just walked around quickly with an iPhone and was snapping pictures and then threw them online. And that, regardless of the price point of home, just doesn't cut it in where we are with modern technology. Like, you need professional photos and they need to be well done. And these days we're including a floor plan with most listings. We're taking aerial photos. We're creating a 3D walkthrough, and the photos are really high level. And you're not going to sell the house online with the photos necessarily, because in most instances, the buyer will walk through the home and see what it actually looks like, feels like, smells like when they get there. But you may not even give yourself a chance to sell the home if it doesn't look phenomenal online, because that's where most buyers are encountering the home for the first time. And so don't try and save $1 on photos, in my opinion. Whether you're listing it yourself or if you're vetting agents, make sure that their historic listing inventory all looks great, all has professional photos, all has 3D walkthroughs, and that gives you the best sort of comfort level that your listing will be treated the same way. Item number 5, you as the seller need to answer the questions before the buyer asks them. And here's what I mean by that. So when you go to sell your home, you should be filling out a seller's property disclosure that's going to ask about anything relevant to the property. So homeowners association dues, any damage or issues that have happened in the past or are currently ongoing. Maybe you had an insurance claim. Utility costs, that's not necessarily in the disclosure, but that's a nice thing to have available for the buyer. So seller's property disclosure, and then the agent should have a good info sheet that they're asking a lot of questions of you as the homeowner as well, because we don't want the buyer, when they make an offer and they start to do discovery, they're doing their due diligence, they're having inspections done. We don't want them asking questions that they don't know the answer to, that they're being surprised by the answer to the questions that they are asking. We want them to know that information up front so that when we do come to an agreement on the purchase price and start moving toward closing, we don't create a nervous buyer by hitting them with lots of new information along the way and potentially causing them to back out. So doing all of the due diligence up front, thinking through what questions a buyer might have and ask, answering those before the buyer even asks those questions, and just giving them that information up front will save you time, will save you headache, and could save you a deal. Item number 6, access matters. And easy access is the best option for you as the homeowner. So essentially, the more hurdles you put in front of a buyer to get into the house to see it, the less likelihood you sell for the highest price, the quickest possible time frame, the fewest number of headaches. You get the point. And so as a real estate brokerage, we have a showing desk that does all of our scheduling for us. And if you're interviewing potential real estate brokers, that should be the case for them as well, because we want to make sure that you have 24/7 opportunity to show the house. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to show the house, in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning or whatever the case may be, but making sure that there are few obstacles in the way of a buyer getting into your house is the point. So if it's possible that you can show it at any time, that's great. If that's not possible, my opinion and advice for you would be to work toward easy in as diligent a manner as you can. Don't make it difficult for the buyer, and make sure that your agent has a process and system in place for not making it difficult on the buyer's agent to schedule the showing. Okay, item number 7, and we're starting to get into the weeds a little bit with this one, but it's relevant. So the internet, and the internet as it pertains to residential real estate, is run by algorithms. So the big websites where you're searching for homes online, whether it's Zillow or Homes.com or Realtor.com or whatever the case may be, all use algorithms to move particular properties up in the quantity of views that they get and take others down. And so whether you're doing the work yourself or your real estate agent is, you want to make sure that A, your home and listing is syndicating to all of the websites that are, in the world. And then B, for the bigger players, you or your agent should be going onto those websites and just sort of tinkering with the description, with the photos, changing little things where you can manually go in and make some edits and improvements. The real estate websites like that, and therefore you get bumped up in the algorithm for how many views you're getting. Views can turn into showings, showings can turn into offers, offers turn into closings, and that's the idea. So just a quick tip to go in and sort of manually edit some of the bigger websites to make sure that they're paying attention to your listing. Item number 8, and we are almost there. Vet your listing agent. So when you are thinking about putting your home on the market and you're doing your due diligence on who to use, don't just pick somebody for the sake of picking a realtor. Do a little bit of homework and make sure that they're selling houses in your area, in your price point, that they have a track record and history of years of doing this, and therefore can be a reliable way to get your property to the finish line and sold. And you also want to look at little details like, okay, on average, when they take a listing, what percentage of the original listing price are they selling the home that they have listed for? How many days on market do they have on average? And if you can look over a long period of time and see that they're basically outperforming the marketplace in general, that gives you a good idea that they're going to perform the same way for you as the seller and homeowner. So that's the tip. Just do a little bit of a deep dive. You can find a lot of this online. The agent should be able to provide it for you, but do a deep dive on your agent to make sure that they can get the job done. Okay, tip number 9, give the buyer's agent a raise. And what do I mean by that? So there's typically 2 parts to a commission when you as the seller are listing the property. You have the portion of the commission that's going to the listing brokerage and agent, and then you have the portion of the commission that's going to the buyer's brokerage and agent. And what I mean is the buyer brokerage agent commission, we want to look around and see what our competition is offering for what's called a cooperating commission. That's the buyer brokerage commission. Let's see what the competition is offering, and if we're having trouble selling quickly, maybe we turn up the volume just a little bit. So if the competition is at X, maybe you turn the buyer agent commission to Y, just to give yourself a little bit of an edge in the marketplace, because there's almost 12,000 real estate agents in our Northeast Florida community at the moment, and they love doing the same amount of work for slightly more money. So it's basically tracking with the incentive and motivation of the buyer's agent to try and get your home sold. So that's tip number 9, is give the buyer's agent a bonus to try and move the property a little bit more quickly. Tip number 10, and this comes down to or back to the idea that there's nuance in getting your home sold, just like there is in baking sourdough bread or having a surgery done. You want to make sure you do it the right way and in the particular amount. And so if you've been on the market for some time and you're getting showings, but you haven't had any offers yet, here's my suggestion. in that situation to a homeowner is make a reverse offer. And what do I mean by that? So typically a buyer will come look at the house and then they'll make you, the seller, an offer. But what's to say you can't, as the seller, put numbers on a purchase agreement and flip the script on them? So maybe you have somebody that's sort of trying to decide between two different houses, and all of a sudden you as the homeowner put in their email inbox an offer to sell your house at a particular price with particular terms, and you've put them to a decision. It may be just enough to get them off the fence when they're deciding between two properties to purchase your home instead of the other one that they're considering. So that's what I call the reverse offer. You can call it multiple different things, but it's a tactic and a tip to put you over the edge if your home hasn't sold quickly enough. All right, bonus tip number 11. And if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. So you may have gotten to this point because you have a house that's been on the market and hasn't sold, or you think it's going to be a particularly difficult process to sell your home. And this bonus tip is that, sometimes we just have to look in the mirror and say, am I being realistic with the price that we're going to get for my particular property? Because at the end of the day, everything sells at the right price. So that's the one thing, that if you've done all of what you need to do in preparing the house for sale and making sure that it's being marketed appropriately and making sure that you have the right people in place to get it sold, and it's still not selling, it may come down to price or condition. And if you can't do anything about the condition, then it's the price. So that is my bonus tip. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, I'd love to catch up. Jeff@pursuitrealestate.com, or you can give me a call, shoot me a text, 904-405-1995. Take care, and I'll look forward to catching up. Bye.